I want you to think back to the first time you ever learned how to ride a bicycle. Maybe you were 4, maybe 5, maybe older. You remember that feeling, the fear of falling, the nervousness in your chest, the wobble in your legs. You remember how awkward and unfamiliar it felt to balance on 2 thin wheels. You didn't feel confident, you didn't feel strong, you felt uncomfortable. And yet, if I asked you now whether you know how to ride a bike, I bet you'd say yes confidently and without hesitation. Why? Because in that discomfort, in that unfamiliarity, you grew. That awkward, shaky, uncertain child grew into someone who could glide down the street with ease. The discomfort was not the obstacle, it was the path. We are wired to seek safety. It's hard-coded into our biology. Safety means survival, familiarity, predictability. Those are signs that things are under control, and under control means we can breathe easy. The problem is, what keeps us safe rarely helps us grow. The challenge is that the space in which we expand, who we are, is very often the same space that makes us nervous. Uncomfortable is the price we pay for unstoppable. Think about every skill you've ever developed, every relationship you've ever deepened, every breakthrough you've ever had in your career or your life. None of those things came wrapped in comfort. The first time you gave a speech, the first time you took a job that felt like a stretch, the first time you asked for a promotion or started a business or stood up for an idea no one else believed in, discomfort was there right beside you. It wasn't an enemy. It was a signal that you were expanding the edges of what you thought you were capable of. What fascinates me is how easily we forget this. We master one skill, one job, one level of performance, and then we start building walls around it. We start creating routines, habits, and systems that keep us in that zone of competence. And we tell ourselves that staying here is wise, efficient, safe. But the truth is, what feels safe often robs us of vitality. Comfort zones are not static, they shrink over time. The longer we sit inside them, the smaller they get. What once felt expansive begins to feel confining. And when that happens, frustration creeps in. We lose momentum, we lose inspiration, we lose that spark that once made us come alive. Not because life got harder, but because we stopped stretching. I've had the privilege of speaking with and studying some of the most inspiring leaders, innovators, and change makers in the world. And what they all have in common is not brilliance or charisma or perfect resumes. What they all have in common is an almost counterintuitive relationship with discomfort. They don't seek out pain for its own sake. They're not masochists. But they do understand that growth lives on the other side of discomfort, and so they practice leaning into it again and again. They make a habit of getting uncomfortable. There's a story I love about a Navy SEAL instructor who once said that when your body is screaming at you that you're done, that you have nothing left, you're actually only at 40% of your capacity. You have 60% left in the tank. But most people never access it because the discomfort is too loud. The mind says stop, the heart says stop, everything in us screams to retreat. But the SEALs train to push beyond that point. They teach themselves to make friends with the discomfort because they know that beyond it is where their real potential lies. Now, you and I, we don't have to be Navy SEALs. We don't need to be scaling mountains or running ultra marathons. But we do need to recognize that if we want to do work that matters, build relationships that matter, and live a life that matters, we cannot avoid discomfort. It is the doorway to everything we want. The person who gets uncomfortable on purpose is the person who stays relevant, agile, and alive. I want you to reflect on this idea. You cannot become unstoppable if you always seek comfort. They are opposites. One protects the status quo, the other breaks it. One holds on tightly to what is, the other reaches bravely into what could be. And here's the beautiful irony. The more you practice stepping into discomfort, the less uncomfortable it feels. Your nervous system adapts, your confidence builds. You realize you don't break as easily as you thought you would. In fact, you begin to crave the feeling of growth because it reminds you that you're not stagnating. We often think of courage as a big dramatic gesture, but more often than not, courage is quiet. It looks like asking a question you're afraid to ask. It looks like admitting you don't know the answer when you feel pressured to pretend you do. It looks like signing up for a project that makes you wonder, am I ready for this? It looks like sitting with a difficult conversation instead of running away from it. These small acts of discomfort compound over time. They build a resilience, a flexibility, a capacity that sets you apart. There's a difference between confidence and competence. Competence is what you know how to do. Confidence is the belief that you'll figure it out even when you don't know how to do it yet. That belief is only built by stepping into situations where you don't know what you're doing and realizing you survived, you adapted, you learned faster than you thought you could. You discovered resources inside you that you didn't know existed. That's why discomfort is not just a nuisance. It's an essential ingredient in building the confidence that makes you unstoppable. I once worked with a leader whose organization had plateaued. For years, they had been growing steadily, but then they hit a wall. Revenues flatlined. Innovation stalled. Morale dipped. On paper, they were still successful, but you could feel the energy draining out of the company. When we dug into what had shifted, it became clear they had stopped experimenting. They had found a formula that worked, and then they clung to it. They avoided risk. They stopped asking provocative questions. They avoided rocking the boat. In other words, they got comfortable, and it was strangling their potential. When we reintroduced uncertainty, when we encouraged experimentation, launched new prototypes, brought in unfamiliar voices, tried things they weren't sure would work, something fascinating happened. At first, there was resistance. People complained tensions rose. People worried about wasting resources or making mistakes. But slowly, as they navigated the discomfort together, energy returned, creativity sparked, people re-engaged. The company began to grow again, not just financially, but culturally, emotionally, spiritually, because they had remembered that stagnation and comfort go hand in hand, and that progress and discomfort are dance partners. If you're a leader, your job is not to remove discomfort for your team. Your job is to create an environment where it's safe to be uncomfortable, where people can experiment and stumble without fear of humiliation or punishment, where the norm is not perfection, but progress, where the message is clear we are here to grow, and growth is messy and awkward and exhilarating all at once. And if you're not in a leadership position formally, you are still leading yourself, the same principle applies. Your job is not to engineer a life so perfectly insulated that nothing ever surprises or stretches you. Your job is to build a mindset where you say to yourself, I am willing to step into the unknown, not because I love discomfort, but because I love who I become when I walk through it. One of the greatest privileges of being human is our capacity to evolve. No other species can reinvent itself like we can. And yet, evolution only happens under pressure. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Muscles are built under resistance. Trees grow stronger when wind pushes against them. Our spirits, our characters, our minds, they all expand under the gentle, persistent push of discomfort. Discomfort is the gateway to growth. It is easy to forget this when we are in the middle of it. When we are uncomfortable, our instinct is to escape. Our brains are hardwired to interpret discomfort as danger. Thousands of years ago, that reaction kept us alive. If we felt a threat, we retreated to safety. But today, the threats we face are rarely life or death. More often, they are challenges to our self-concept, our competence, or our sense of control. And because we instinctively interpret those feelings as something bad, we back away just when we should lean in. If you think about any meaningful accomplishment you've had in your life, you'll realize that it came from moving through discomfort, not avoiding it. Whether it was mastering a new skill, building a strong relationship, or stepping into a leadership role, discomfort was present. It showed up as fear, uncertainty, awkwardness, or vulnerability. But it also signaled that you were entering new territory. Growth cannot happen when we only do what we've always done. New results require new behaviors. New behaviors require us to step into situations where we don't feel fully prepared. That gap between what we know and what we need to know, that is discomfort. And it is also where we expand. The beauty of discomfort is that it stretches our capacity. Imagine a rubber band that is never stretched. It becomes brittle over time. But a rubber band that is gently stretched and released repeatedly maintains its elasticity and strength. Our minds and spirits work the same way. Discomfort stretches us to accommodate new perspectives, skills, and experiences, and the more we stretch, the greater our range of motion becomes, not physically, but emotionally, intellectually, and relationally. We also underestimate how quickly discomfort can diminish once we engage with it. The anticipation of discomfort is often worse than the experience itself. We imagine that the difficult conversation will be unbearable. We convince ourselves that the new project will be overwhelming. We predict that stepping on stage will paralyze us with fear. But when we actually step into the arena, something shifts. Our focus narrows, our bodies adapt, we find footing, and we realize that while it's not easy, it's also not impossible. Each time we have that realization, we expand our sense of what is possible. Another way to think about discomfort is as a teacher. It points out where our limits are, not to shame us, but to show us where we can grow next. If public speaking makes us nervous, that discomfort signals that we have room to build communication skills. If having honest conversations with a partner feels hard, that discomfort points to an opportunity to strengthen trust and vulnerability. Discomfort is feedback. It shows us where to pay attention if we want to level up. And just like a good teacher, it will stay present until we learn the lesson. Once we do, it often fades and is replaced by competence and confidence. It's also important to remember that discomfort and danger are not the same thing. We often conflate the two. Danger is a situation where real harm is possible. Discomfort is simply the absence of ease. Most of the time, we are safe even when we are uncomfortable. Making this distinction helps us reframe our experience. When we realize that our heart racing or palms sweating doesn't mean we're in danger, but simply that we're growing, we can stay present and work through it rather than retreating. People who embrace discomfort consistently over time become adaptable. They trust themselves in unfamiliar situations. They don't crumble when plans change or challenges arise. They've trained their nervous system to tolerate uncertainty, and in doing so, they access opportunities that others miss. Opportunities often disguise themselves as discomfort. They show up as the job you don't feel quite ready for, the person you're nervous to talk to, the idea you're scared to share. If you shy away from discomfort, you miss those openings. But if you recognize it as a signal of potential, you step into a cycle of constant evolution. There's a quiet confidence that comes from having faced discomfort repeatedly. It doesn't look like arrogance. It looks like calm curiosity. People who are used to stretching themselves approach challenges with the mindset of, let's see what I can learn here, rather than, I need to prove something. That mindset makes them resilient, open, and agile. They don't need to control every variable because they trust their ability to navigate whatever arises. That trust was built through discomfort. They earned it. They didn't read it in a book or hear it in a lecture. They felt it in their bones through experience. Comfort zones shrink over time. It doesn't happen all at once, and it doesn't make a loud announcement. It happens quietly, gradually, almost imperceptibly. One day you realize that the things you used to do with ease now make you hesitate. The challenges you once embraced feel intimidating. The risk you once took without a second thought start to seem unreasonable. It's not because the world changed dramatically, it's because your tolerance for uncertainty and stretch has eroded. The boundary of what feels familiar has closed in on you inch by inch. What's interesting is that a comfort zone isn't inherently bad. In fact, it serves a purpose. It's the space where we operate with competence and confidence. It's where we can perform reliably and efficiently. It's necessary to have one. But like any healthy boundary, it needs to be elastic. If we never step beyond it, it stops being a base of strength and starts becoming a cage. The paradox is that the very thing that once gave us security can slowly limit us if we cling to it too tightly. Human beings adapt quickly. That's one of our greatest strengths. But adaptation cuts both ways. We can adapt to expanding environments, and we can also adapt to shrinking ones. If we avoid discomfort long enough, we normalize that avoidance. What once seemed like a small risk begins to feel like a big one. What once was an ordinary challenge starts to seem extraordinary. Our world contracts because our experiences stop expanding. You can see this happen in people's careers. Someone gets very good at a particular role. They master the processes, the relationships, the industry dynamics. They become the go-to person. That mastery feels good, so they settle into it. They stop seeking new challenges. Over time, their skills plateau, their curiosity diminishes. And eventually, the market shifts, technology advances, or customer needs evolve, and they find themselves unprepared. Their once expansive capability has narrowed because they didn't keep stretching. Their comfort zone became their ceiling. The same happens in relationships. Early on, when we're building connections, we take risks, we share openly. We try new things together, we challenge each other's perspectives. That dynamic keeps the relationship vibrant and growing. But if we start prioritizing ease over engagement, the relationship stagnates. We avoid hard conversations because they feel uncomfortable. We stick to familiar routines because they require less effort. And gradually the depth and richness of the relationship diminish. What once felt expansive now feels predictable and stale. The shrinking of a comfort zone is rarely intentional. Most of us don't wake up and say, I want my world to get smaller. It happens because of subtle choices we make repeatedly. We say no to opportunities because they're inconvenient. We avoid conversations because they're awkward. We decline invitations because they're outside our routine. Each of those choices feels insignificant in the moment, but over time they accumulate. The boundary of our comfort zone moves inward. What's powerful, though, is that this process is reversible. Just as comfort zones shrink through repeated avoidance, they expand through repeated engagement. Every time we say yes to something slightly outside our norm, we push the boundary outward. It doesn't require massive leaps. Small, consistent stretches have a compounding effect. The presentation we're nervous to give, the feedback we're hesitant to offer, the new project we feel underqualified to take on. Each time we engage with something just beyond our current capacity, our comfort zone breathes and grows. There's a simple way to gauge where your comfort zone is shrinking or expanding. Pay attention to how often you feel stretched. If your days are marked by ease, predictability, and routine alone, you're probably contracting. If your days include moments of uncertainty, effort, and curiosity, you're expanding. It's not about being uncomfortable all the time. That's unsustainable. But a healthy rhythm includes regular doses of stretch that keep you agile and engaged. Confidence is built by navigating the unknown. It's easy to assume that confidence comes from competence, that once we know enough, have enough experience, and have mastered enough skills, confidence will naturally follow. But that's only part of the story. True confidence is less about how much we know and more about how we relate to not knowing. It's about how we handle situations where we aren't fully prepared, fully informed, or fully in control. It's in those moments of uncertainty that the deepest layers of confidence are forged. When we step into the unknown, something important happens. We are forced to rely not on the script we've memorized, but on our ability to adapt, observe, and respond in real time. That process builds a kind of internal sturdiness that is hard to shake. It teaches us that even when we don't have all the answers, we can figure things out as we go. That belief in our ability to navigate uncertainty is a more sustainable form of confidence than simply relying on past knowledge or perfect preparation. Consider how a young professional grows into a seasoned leader. Early in their career, they rely heavily on rules, best practices, and guidance from others. That's appropriate and necessary. But as they move into new roles with greater responsibility, they inevitably encounter situations that no manual has covered. They have to make judgment calls without full information. They have to manage personalities, conflicts, and challenges that don't fit neatly into predefined categories. Through repeated exposure to these ambiguous situations, they develop what we call executive presence. But what is executive presence really? It's not having all the answers. It's the calm, grounded confidence that comes from having navigated uncertainty many times and trusting one's ability to do it again. This kind of confidence doesn't show up overnight. It is built incrementally. Every time we step into a meeting where we don't know how it will unfold, every time we engage with a topic we haven't mastered yet, every time we say yes to a project that feels slightly beyond our current capability, we add another layer to our foundation. Slowly but surely, we accumulate evidence that we can handle more than we thought we could. That evidence rewires our self-perception. The trap many people fall into is believing they need to feel confident before they take action. They wait to feel ready, but readiness rarely arrives in advance. Action precedes confidence, not the other way around. When we act despite uncertainty, We prove to ourselves that we are capable of operating without all the pieces in place. That proof is what creates lasting confidence. It's experiential, not theoretical. Another critical piece of this is how we relate to mistakes. If we interpret mistakes as evidence of inadequacy, we will shy away from unknown situations to protect our ego. But if we understand mistakes as an inevitable part of navigating new terrain, they lose their sting. Mistakes become data points, not verdicts. They inform our next move rather than define our identity. People who have high confidence aren't people who never make mistakes. They are people who have learned through experience that mistakes are survivable and often educational. They've navigated the unknown enough times to realize that imperfection is part of the process. Confidence built in the unknown is also transferable. Once we develop it in one domain, it spills over into others. Someone who has built confidence navigating complex negotiations starts to trust their ability to navigate difficult personal conversations as well. Someone who has built confidence adapting to rapidly changing markets starts to trust their ability to adapt to unexpected life changes. The specific skills might differ, but the underlying self-trust carries over. It becomes a generalized sense of capability that applies across contexts. We often admire people who seem poised, calm, and assured in unpredictable situations. We think they are naturally confident. But what we are usually seeing is practiced confidence, confidence that has been earned through exposure to many unknowns over time. They've been in enough situations where the path wasn't clear that they've come to trust their capacity to figure things out on the fly. That trust is what gives them their composure. Avoiding discomfort guarantees stagnation. This is a truth that many of us would prefer to ignore because discomfort feels unpleasant and our instincts push us to shy away from pain. We are naturally wired to seek comfort, to stay within what is familiar, to protect ourselves from experiences that challenge us or stretch us beyond our current capacity. However, this instinct to avoid discomfort can be the very thing that keeps us from realizing our full potential. When we make avoiding discomfort our primary goal, we are essentially choosing stagnation over growth, security over possibility, and predictability over transformation. Discomfort is the signal that we are on the edge of something new. It is the point where the familiar ends and the unknown begins. This is where true growth happens. When we step beyond our comfort zone, we enter a space of challenge, uncertainty, and vulnerability. It is in this space that we discover what we are truly capable of. But if we allow ourselves to remain within the confines of what feels safe and easy, we limit ourselves. We restrict our growth, and over time, this limitation can lead to a life of quiet dissatisfaction. We become comfortable in a way that is actually detrimental to our development. The irony is that most people seek comfort without realizing that it is the very thing that creates stagnation. It's easy to settle into routines that make us feel safe. Whether it's sticking to the same job, staying within the same social circle, or doing things the way we've always done them, these habits can create an illusion of stability. But in reality, these routines often mask the subtle erosion of our potential. As we avoid the discomfort of change, of challenge of the unknown, we shrink our world. The comfort zone that once felt expansive gradually becomes smaller and smaller until it feels suffocating. In every aspect of life, when we choose to avoid discomfort, we are choosing to stop moving forward. Think about your career, where there's always a moment when we're faced with an opportunity to step up, to take on something bigger, or to push ourselves beyond our current limits. That opportunity often comes with discomfort, whether it's fear of failure, fear of rejection, or fear of the unknown. But if we allow that discomfort to stop us, we stay in our current position. We resist the possibility of promotion, the chance to take on a new responsibility, or the opportunity to learn something new. And as we stay in this familiar space, we forego the chance to expand. The same is true in personal relationships. Vulnerability, honesty, and emotional connection all require stepping into discomfort. When we avoid hard conversations, when we don't express how we truly feel, or when we don't take the risk of sharing a part of ourselves with another person, we rob ourselves of the chance to deepen our relationships. We might convince ourselves that keeping things safe will preserve harmony, but in reality, it only keeps the relationship shallow. Growth in relationships requires discomfort. It requires the courage to open up, to be vulnerable, and to risk rejection or misunderstanding. Without these challenges, relationships stagnate and lose their depth. The danger of avoiding discomfort is that it becomes a habit. The more we shy away from it, the easier it gets to keep avoiding it. Over time, we train ourselves to prioritize comfort, to choose the path of least resistance, and to play it safe. But safety, while comforting, is not where greatness is found. It's not where new opportunities arise, and it's not where we tap into the depths of our potential. Greatness, whether in our careers, relationships, or personal growth, is found in the spaces where we challenge ourselves, where we step outside of what feels easy, and where we embrace the discomfort that comes with the unknown. If we want to avoid stagnation, we must learn to embrace discomfort. We must train ourselves to view discomfort not as something to fear, but as a necessary part of the growth process. Every time we face a challenge, every time we do something that makes us feel uncomfortable, we are expanding our capacity. We are strengthening our resilience and building our ability to handle even greater challenges in the future. When we choose discomfort, we choose progress. We choose transformation. And ultimately, we choose a life that is alive with possibility. The challenge then is not to avoid discomfort, but to lean into it. It's to understand that discomfort is a sign that we are moving forward, not backward. It's to recognize that while discomfort may feel unpleasant in the moment, it is always temporary and the rewards that come from stepping into it are lasting. If we constantly avoid discomfort, we ensure that we remain exactly where we are, forever locked in a cycle of predictability and stagnation. But if we embrace discomfort, we break free from that cycle. We open ourselves up to new experiences, new opportunities, and new versions of ourselves that we didn't even know were possible. In the end, growth is not a passive process. It requires action, discomfort, and the willingness to step into the unknown. When we choose to step beyond our comfort zones, we open ourselves up to the kind of transformation that creates lasting success, deeper connections, and greater resilience. Discomfort is not something to avoid. It is a signal that we are on the right path. It is the very thing that pushes us to evolve, adapt, and reach new heights. As we face challenges, embrace vulnerability, and engage with the unfamiliar, we build the confidence and strength necessary to continue expanding. Avoiding discomfort guarantees stagnation, and while it may feel easier in the moment, it ultimately leads to a life that is smaller than the one we are capable of living. To truly grow unstoppable, we must welcome discomfort as an essential companion in the journey of life. It is through navigating the unknown, embracing vulnerability, and leaning into discomfort that we discover who we are and what we are capable of becoming. The question is not whether we will face discomfort, it is how we choose to face it that will determine the course of our future.